Hey guys, another SAL video here. Figured I'd shoot a couple clips showing you guys how I did accomplish the networking in the machine with the rest of my programming computers and everything. There's a couple different ways to do it. Apparently there's some variation. Some of the controls, I don't know if this is true, but talking with other guys, some of them are Linux based and some are Windows based. Other guys have accomplished this same thing using like a Windows share, the SMB1 protocol that's been, I think there's instructions floating around on the group on how to do that. No amount of playing around with that, I couldn't get it to work, so I had to figure something else out. If you look at the control here on this little flip-up door on the right-hand side, there's an Ethernet port there, which is intended for this purpose. So this is hardwired. There's a little jumper that goes into the back. If you pull this door off, you'd be able to see it onto LAN port 1 of the control. So it's meant for that purpose. So this is kind of like I move around a lot in front of the machine and move the pendant and stuff. I didn't really want to have to look at or worry about a cable getting damaged here, so I opted to run it internal to the machine. So I'll go around the back and climb up on a ladder and show you how I did that. Okay, welcome to the top of my machine. So going through the ceiling here, I have my Ethernet drop coming from connected to my switch here in the garage. I installed this little Ethernet bulkhead fitting. So I punched a 1-inch hole through the sheet metal and installed that. It's just a female-female bulkhead connection. So this is from the switch, and then internal to the machine, I installed this Cat6 shielded cable that runs to the back of the control. You might be able to get away with not using shielded, but given that there's some power flowing in this tray immediately adjacent to it, you see the orange high voltage wires, as well as a bunch of signal wires and the green encoder signal cables. So there's potential, if it's not shielded, that you wind up with some interference. So I'll put up a picture of what the back of the connection point on the back of the control looks like. But this worked out well for me, and it made it more of like a seamless install. If I, for whatever reason, need to move the machine or do anything that I need to do with it, all I got to do is unplug it, and then there's this little cap that I can thread on, to protect that port. But I wanted anything that lived in the machine to stay there and not interfere with anything else that might happen in the future. So that's that. Okay, now everything's hardwired in. We got all of our connections made. Our computer and the machine are both on the same network. So now we have to do some configuration on the machine itself. So if you go to maintain and then set kernel server, this is your main networking page for the machine that you can specify, all your different parameters. So I've already gone through this, but you want to specify an IP address. Your IP address, you want to be on the same subnet as the programming PCs that you might have. So in my case, it's 192.168.1. whatever. So you would specify an address that isn't used by any other device on your network. You want your subnet masks to match, and then your default gateway to match also. Now down here, I don't know if you have to do this, but I just punched in the name of my local PC here that I'm connecting it to. So Lil Bub. Username and password blank, and that's all you need to do. So if we go to the NC file directory, okay, we'll just leave that up. and I'll jump on the computer here and show you what you have to do to connect to that, and then I'll kind of show you the interface after that's all done. Alright, so we're on the computer in the garage here, adjacent to the machine. Wow, this is kind of trippy. It's like an Inception or something. All the multi-dimensionality of everything that's possible and all that shit, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, WinSCP is the program you want to connect to the machine with this FTP protocol. It's free software. I'll put the link up in the description to download it. If you're doing it for the first time, you know, you got all your hardwiring done, it's connected to your switch, your computer's connected to your switch, and for what it's worth, I'm using all unified gear, so maybe there's some particularities with what I had to do to get this to work in my application. It should be pretty universal for anybody doing this. So open WinSCP, and on your initial login, you're not gonna have any of this stuff here down below. So that's just for me monkeying around previously. If you're logging in for the first time, you want to do FTP protocol. Your host name is going to be whatever IP address you specified in the machine control on that set kernel page. Okay, the important bit is that your subnet mask matches whatever the IP address config of the PC you're connecting to it is. Port number 21, username and password are going to be left blank because we didn't specify anything in the control for that. Hit anonymous login and then hit save, and then it'll give you this little window, so you can say, we'll name it something different. So it's all X72. Let's already have one. All right, so save password. And then create desktop shortcut, and what that'll do is it'll create a link, so you can just double click that on the desktop instead of having to go through this login every time. So hit OK, and you see that link was created. So you hit login. Alright, and now we're connected, and just for sake of argument, if I were to exit out of this session, and once you establish that, all you have to do is click on your desktop link, and it's connected, so you don't have to do any of that login stuff ever again. On the left hand side, so it's a two-pane window. On the left hand side you have your local directory where all your NC files or whatever else you have are stored on your PC that's connected. On the right hand side, that's your target directory. This is the top level NC directory for the machine. So this is really nice because it turns what's kind of cumbersome on the control in terms of organization. There's like a folder manager and stuff you can do, but it turns it into any file explorer window. So you can rearrange your files. Say you have like a bunch of files hanging out in space down here that aren't in a directory. You can reorganize them, you can rename stuff, you can create other test directories. So I created, if you go in and say, okay, I want to create a new directory, we'll call this test 3. All right, it's available on the machine immediately. So I can drag and drop. Okay, now that spindle warm-up routine lives within that directory that I just created. You do have to refresh the control, toggle off of your file manager screen onto something else and then bring it back up. But once you do that, every change you made is going to be there, which is extremely convenient. It sure beats having to do a file import on everything from a flash drive. So this machine is down at the garage. I took this little chance on this mini PC, for $400, not really knowing, but
I found it to run Fusion perfectly fine. I'll put up a link for that if anybody's interested. You know, I'm not trying to shill products. I'm just trying to tell you guys like things that I've spent my money on that work for me. So so kind of like, just to back up how I have this set up. So I have this garage PC right next to the machine that I can program from. I also have an office computer that has a lot more horsepower that lives up in my house. So I have two computers that can generate NC files that I will ultimately be executing for for machining parts and stuff. So I have everything networked in, so I can remote desktop into my office computer, and that's what this is here. And the workflow from here is, if I have Fusion open and post out a file, I created on the network, I created a shared folder between the two computers. So if I post out a file up here, I have this CNC directory that I can say I create a file, and all I got to do is drag and drop it into this. Okay, so I created this test 2. If I come back, this is the garage PC right next to the machine. If I go to the CNC directory that I created, there's my test 2. So now I can pull from that to then post it out. It doesn't like that it's a text file, but if it's an NC file, I can just drag and drop it from this folder into the machine control directly. As far as I can tell, you can only have like one machine connection established in this FTP window at a time, and just knowing that I'd be highly unlikely to post out a program from the house with the machine on was probably unlikely, because if I'm down at the garage, I'm going to be working from this computer anyway. So that's kind of why I set it up that way. So just to follow up on those demo edits that I made to the NC file directory on the machine, it doesn't repopulate it in real time, so you'll need to refresh that screen. So if you just click to your WCS screen and go back to NC and File Manager, I created that test 2 directory, and there it is. And then I also dragged and dropped that spindle warm up 2 weeks in at that top level. So there it is. Yeah, it's awesome. So I go to this is my PC that's up at the house. I do a lot of this stuff for work, revision control of, electronic documents. So program files, application files, executables and stuff. The point of having an SVN server is to give you better control, revision control of all your critical files that you care about, which may not be strictly necessary, but if you're like me and you have an NC directory that's has a bunch of files dumped into it, and all you got is your date modified, like inevitably you're going to have to make tweaks to everything, so you're not really going to know for sure. It starts to get out of hand like really quickly. So I was looking for a way to establish a directory or repository that I know is good. So if I make a change and commit it, I have a lot of confidence that this is the file that I need to be using. Okay, we're on the Office PC, and this is a 2-step thing. So you have a host and you have a client. So the host is whatever machine that is, think of it as your main hub. Like if you have network storage, that's going to be your NAS drive. That is your host. That's the machine that's hosting like all the directories and stuff that you want to have control over. So for right now, I have that set up on my office PC, and to set that up, you go to Visual SVN Server Manager, which is also free software, and you're prompted with this, and you have the ability to, like, once you go into it, you can create a repository. Okay, so I created the Syntec 7 repository, which is what this is here. Okay, just to show all those directories. So that's what's shown up in this library here, and it generates a link, a URL that you will then connect to with Tortoise SVN software to serve as a client. So you're accessing the directory established by this host with your client PCs. In this case, the same machine that I'm hosting it on, I also want it to be a client because I want to be able to access all this stuff and commit to it and modify and all that stuff. So once you have that set up, you have this link, you pass it through to your Tortoise SVN software. Okay, I already got a directory set up, so it's telling me to go to Tortoise or the repo browser. So once you install this and you right-click on the desktop or anywhere, you have this Tortoise SVN option, so you can go to repo browser. Here's your URL that you punch in that you establish from the host. Okay, hit OK, and now this is what you're looking at. So you have all these different subfolders within this hosted repository. And what this does for you is give you revision control over all these files. So in this case, I have this 08000 macro that I've been playing with. It's a unload all tools function that Derek Lee wrote, which has been awesome. It's really convenient if you need to completely change your setups out between jobs and parts that are running. It's really convenient. So within the repository, this is the I need to back up a second. So in order to create this Syntec 7 folder, okay, let's delete this for sake of argument. If I want to create a local file, a local link to this repository, I can come in here and go to checkout, and it's going to create a desktop link. In this case, in this case, it's on my desktop. So head revision, hit OK. At revision 20. Okay. So now this link here is tied to everything that's in this repository. And I guess this might be getting into the weeds a little bit, but what it does for you, so you have on Windows 10, I was able to get all these little icon overlays working. So Tortoise SVN software has all this, green check mark means everything is committed and up to date. There's no files that have been edited and not committed. If I go to this macro and say I make a change, okay, I have this comment line, so comment for test, so we'll say 2. I'll say save. Okay, now you see this red mark. That means it's been edited but not committed to the repository. So it's out of date. So if I right click, go to SVN commit,
this window up top that gives you a space to enter in comments for what you changed and why you did it. So in this case, I'm going to say edited for demo purposes, and then CSK. You know, in this case, if you're working with multiple people, it's a good idea to and you can set up multiple profiles and all this stuff. But you know, enter in what you did. That's the big thing. Enter in comments because they're extremely helpful, and I'll show you why in a second. Okay, now we're at revision 21. So if we hit, let's see, refresh. Okay, everything's checked in and up to date. You saw that icon, update to green. That means it's checked in. The powerful thing about this, and the reason why I wanted to implement it, I do a lot of this stuff for work, and the light bulb went off because I found it, you know, looking for a way to know what's good, like separate what's good and what's not for a reason I explained previously. So with this software, you can show log on any individual file that's in the repository. And this is, you see the revision level here on the left. That is the revision level of every single iteration of this file that's ever existed and has been checked into the repository. And the whatever comments you enter, if you fix something, you can say, okay, well, before this revision 15, I had this revision 12 that didn't work. Okay, I came up to revision 15, and I fixed this. I left a comment for myself. I fixed an error on line 44, missing parentheses, whatever. I recommitted that. And the powerful thing is, as you go on, and this is more of a software development, it's kind of like a localized GitHub, if you want to think of it that way. It gives you the ability to, it's like a time machine. So if you make a change that doesn't work, you can always revert back to a previous iteration of it. Update item to revision. So now I'm back to revision 20. If I want to go back to revision 21, now I'm at revision 21, and that's the active file that's going to be available in this repository. All right, so this is the Office PC. If I go back to the Garage PC, I did the same thing. Okay, so I did a checkout on that repository from the repo browser because I have this URL and they're all in the same network and they're talking. So this is the same directory that's hosted on my Office PC. I did the same thing. I created a checkout, and that's what this is here. And you'll notice this is Windows 11, and you can go in through the registry and try to edit all those icon overlay things. I couldn't get those overlay icons to work, which is kind of annoying because it alerts you immediately to things that may or may not be out of date, right? But I have the same ability here. I access that same repository. If I make a change to this macro, where did I do that? So comment for test. So I want to go comment for test 2. And I hit OK. And then I hit commit. Macro is out of date. Okay, so I gotta, alright, update it. So now, see, that's the thing. It alarms out at you if you're not. In this case, I didn't update that directory because I changed from revision 20 to 21, and it didn't like that. So hit update. Okay, I'm at revision 21. If I hit edit, comment for test 2, exit out, and now I can commit.
hit OK. Now I'm at revision 22. So I have revision control from both clients running this thing. If I go back to my office computer, all right, same repository, and I do an update, I'm at revision 22. If I go to that file, that comment line updated. So between these two machines, I have the ability to commit to this repository, have revision control, and do all that. You just have more confidence in the files, because there's a lot of files. There's macros, there's NC files, there's machine backups, there's post processors, there's all this stuff that you want to, like, if the complexity demands it, you're going to want to have revision control over it. So I just figured this is, like I said, it's kind of getting into the weeds, but maybe you'll find it useful, maybe you won't. But if you're into, diving as deep into it as what I'm trying to do here, maybe you'll find it useful. Maybe it'll give you some ideas on how to implement it for yourself. So, yeah, I hope it helps you. So one last thing I wanted to talk about. If you right-click on a file, go to Tortoise SVN, there's all these different options available, right? And may or may not be like obvious what they're for. But one thing, kind of following on to what we were just, the examples that we just did, is you can do diff with previous version. And this is it's comparing the current revision level to the revision level that was checked in below it. So if I click this, okay, it opens this up. So on the left we have revision 21, and on the right we have the working copy. We have revision 22 that's checked in the repository, and it will highlight all the differences between the two programs. So in this case, we have comment line on 4 it's test 2, and then for revision 22, I added test 23. I modified that line, right? And it'll do that for every single segment. So if you add lines or take away lines, it'll highlight them all, and you'll be able to compare these two files and analyze them immediately. And like it makes it really obvious, like what was changed, and this becomes a lot more important when you're working with multiple people. In this case, it's just me, but yeah, that's another little function within the software that I think you should know about.